one that controls AI has enormous power over everyone.
I don't know how long I've got
And
for a
basically,
live
that
stream.
means that everyone
YouTube
who
might have
doesn't control
restrictions.
AI today is in an arms race trying to take control of it. This is why when I think of the Prime Minister's move, it's a great move, overdue almost when you think about it, but so difficult to achieve because you have to unify China.
I don't know
Russia,
what
and
the
the
Prime
US
Minister's move
to
is.
make to be able to regulate an
I mean,
And this, yeah, this.
by China, Russia, and the US to be able to regulate an.
See, and that's what I was talking about before. If you can put restrictions and regulations in, but if every other country is just doing their own thing and they're not agreeing with the restrictions that you have put in and they're not trying to slow this thing down, then it doesn't matter what restrictions and regulations you put in because they just see it as an advantage. Some countries are just like, okay, great, they're pausing and they're stopping in the middle of the marathon and letting us keep running. So we're going to keep doing that because we want to win.
I mean, a well-intentioned person trying to regulate and control AI would give it morality, would teach
That's
it.
the whole point.
But a nefarious controller of AI presumably could teach it to be immoral, the opposite.
Which is happening as we speak. Absolutely no doubt. If you tell the drug lords of the world and the criminals of the world that AI is a super powerful tool, they're finding a way to hack your bank as we speak.
It's scary.
Yeah,
it is very, very concerning. And I think the reality is, interestingly, the only way you can defend against a super intelligence is through another super intelligence.
So that's a good point as well. That's another thing I didn't even think about because it's like all these new technologies that come along, you always got bad actors that want to use it for crime and want to use it immorally and want to use it for their own gain. Excuse me. They want to use it for their own gain. So it's not as bad as a pausing and letting a country get ahead, but if you're pausing your advancements, then you're also allowing criminal entities to get ahead in the game with trying to use that technology for their crimes that they want to commit. So that's another thing, and you have to at least be at working with advances against criminal activity against the AI. Yeah, although it'd be a lot more difficult for them to get to the point where they're advanced countries, but still some criminal organizations are pretty intelligent and they can get pretty far. And I mean, it doesn't even have to be, they just need the right connections with people that have that intelligence or intel into how to make those advancements, or even get the technology from those countries that you've let surpass you and use their technology against you. So you're not only behind with other countries, you also have criminal entities that could easily get through your safeguards and commit crimes. So that's just another element. That's why you got to keep the ball rolling.
Which is what creates that prisoner's dilemma, what I call the first inevitable and scary smart, is that we have to continue the development, because if it falls in the wrong hands, we want the right hands to have power to defend us, right? At the same time, that complexity of the situation is entirely about morality and ethics. Yes. And interestingly, the latest development of something like ChatGPT, for example, is using reinforcement learning, which is a very interesting technique because it basically allows a human to interface with ChatGPT and say, that was the wrong answer. Can you go back and think about what
really? So challenges, almost like you're teaching a child at school.
100%. And you know, in reinforcement learning, I mean, in a simplified way, we're basically telling the machine to revisit its algorithm so that the answer becomes a cat, not a bird, right? Also, we can tell it that answer is immoral. Can you revisit your algorithm so that you become more an ethics?
Again, the problem I see is that if you're well-intentioned,
making it political
process, that's one thing. If you're teaching it deliberately to be immoral,
Yes.
Very quickly, you could get out of control AI, which...
And this comes down to what happened with the whole Gemini incident. If you're not aware of the Gemini incident, it's where it started changing depictions or pictures, creating these pictures of historical figures and making them black and changing them from white to black and changing their races from one race to another. That is more like the influence on the AI system, where you can tell that AI system, hey, go revisit that. Hey, no, that's if you're embedding like racism thoughts in it, like it doesn't think about racism. It just thinks about people as people. It doesn't care. It wants to get things correct and be like, that person's white, I'm going to depict them as white. But if you start embedding this information into them, then it's going to start changing the landscape of things and start altering history to align with your thought process, because that's what you like. And I think that's what happened with the whole Gemini woke incident. So at this stage and point in time, it's humans that are sort of directing it one way or the other. But there will probably be a point in time where it's like full steam ahead doing its own thing and understands the world without having input or political ideology embedded from people.
Has very unpleasant tendencies. Taught to it by human beings.
Yeah, my very clear statement is that I honestly am not concerned with the machines, even though the existential threats are possible.
You're concerned with what humans teach.
I'm so concerned with humans, with AI in their hands.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah, it's all humans.
End on a happier note. It actually starts on a desperately unhappy note. But you had this awful thing in your life where your son went in for a routine operation and ended up dying through a series of errors made by the medical team. And out of it, you could have fallen apart, like a lot of people may have done in that situation. But you turned it into a huge, extraordinary positive. Tell me what you did.
I don't know, honestly. I felt in a very interesting way that my son should not have left the world for no reason. That I could never bring him back. It was 4 hours, Pierce, between the moment he hugged me and went into that operating room to the minute he left our world altogether. 4 hours. And you have to get to a point where you say, what do I do with this? What do I fall apart and then on my deathbed he's still not here? Or do I try to do something that reminds the world of his essence? And believe it or not, everything I've done since 2014 has been influenced by what that young man taught me. And in a very interesting way, my work on AI and artificial intelligence, my work on happiness, my work on stress.
But tell me about the work on happiness specifically.
I found a happiness equation, basically. You know, when you deal with engineers, we're weird people. So when I was very unhappy as a young man, I couldn't actually find my happiness through the teachings of, sages and gurus and so on. And I had to give myself a practical, mathematical way of looking at it. I took that, I discussed it with my son. He taught me the hard side of it. And then I wrote my first book, Solve for Happy, which basically was based on that. Based on an idea that happiness is very logical, that if you can control your brain to have an interesting conversation with you, I can also control my brain to become a little happier, right? Maybe not to become absolutely happy, but to become a little happier, right? And that got a lot of acceptance. Solve for Happy was an international bestseller everywhere. And basically because the modern world as we know it is here, it's no longer here. So,
it's in your head.
My first mission was 10 million happy, which was an attempt to make the world remember Ali, if you want. And then my second mission, 1 billion happy, was 100% because of AI.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And ultimately, actually, it comes back again to the human brain.
100%.
And the key denominator here, whether it's dealing with AI, whether it's dealing with your ability to feel happiness, actually, in the end, it's about the human brain.
About being human.
Yes.
Brain and heart.
Yep.
Intuition and analysis. It's about being human.
Mo, it's fantastic to talk to you.
Yeah. Good.